Good evening. My name is Pastor Lisa Clay. My husband Richard and I pastor Crossroads. We're brand new to the community. We love Freeport. We love this county. We're committed to seeing the growth, economic development, and the prosperity. So if you will join me, we will just pray and ask the Holy Spirit for his help. Heavenly Father, we thank you so much that you are interested in every little detail of this evening. We ask that your presence fill this place, fill our hearts and our souls. Father, we pray that the wisdom of the Most High God would visit this place, invade our minds, our creativity. Father, we pray for the prosperity of our ideas, the unifying effect of your presence, and the peace of the Most High God to reside here tonight. Father, we are all stewards of our skills and abilities representing the people of this great city. We thank you for the mayor and each council person here. We thank you for everyone here selected, appointed, and elected by you, not just the people of this city, but you, to forward and bring prosperity to this wonderful. Father, we ask you that you would bless the business. We ask that you would bless the discussion with your peace, with your unifying effect. We pray that each person here tonight would feel the peace, no matter what's going on in their personal lives, would feel the peace of the Most High God coming upon their soul and their mind so they can think clearly about what's best for this city. Lord, bless the mayor, bless each person here tonight with increasing health and even ever-present sense that you love them and you care about everything that they do for the city of Freeport and this county. We thank you for it in the name of Jesus. Amen.
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 Thank you. It now being 6 p.m., this regular meeting of the Freeport City Council will be called to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mayor Gitz,
Here.
Alderperson Clem,
Here.
McClanathan,
Here.
Ross,
Here.
Miller,
Here.
Busker,
Here.
Brashaw,
Here.
Keister,
Here.
Chesney.
Here.
Pledge of Allegiance by Alderman Clem, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah, before you, the agenda, the chair will entertain a motion to approve it.
So move.
It's moved by
Second.
Alderman Keister. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Alderman Clem. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the ayes have it. You have before you the minutes from the September 6th regular meeting. Is there a motion for their approval?
So move.
I'm sorry, who made the motion?
Pat.
Alderman Busker moves approval of the minutes from September 6th. Is there a second?
Second it.
Seconded by Alderman Ross. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the ayes have it. We now come to item 3, which is public comments on agenda items. First person to sign up is Steve Carroll.
Okay, I'm Steve Carroll. I live at 811 Oak in Freeport. And tonight, you're going to vote on the nomination of Greta Harrell for the Freeport Housing Authority Board. And I would urge you to vote in her favor for a whole bunch of reasons. She primarily has outstanding qualifications. She has a bachelor's in human resource management and business management. She's been with the school district, if I counted right, 26 years. And for the last several years, she's been the executive assistant to the superintendent. Somebody with her qualifications, quite frankly, I'm amazed and very pleased she's still living in Freeport. So, you know, and she's willing to volunteer her time and her efforts. So I think we better take it up on her, because as I've said in the past, we're a city in crisis. We need all hands on deck. We need all the help we can get. And she has worked for a government agency for the last 26 years. That would be the school district. And that's part of government, as is the Park District, city government, township government, and yes, even the Housing Authority is part of government. And what goes on and happens in government is everyone's business, including mine. Thank you.
Thank you. The second person to sign a sign-up sheet for public comments is Ms. Wendy Pearson.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council. My name is Wendy Pearson. I reside at 711 South Carroll Avenue, Freeport, Illinois. I want to start this by telling you that I believe in change. I don't believe in nepotism. I believe that the only way that we as a community can change and achieve the things that will best suit the needs of this community is that we allow new ideas to be brought out by others, giving them the opportunity to expand, grow, and benefit this community by having a voice in a voice that isn't in the same families. Unfortunately, when we look at boards, when we look at activities that occur in this community, the voices that are working within this community tend to be the same voices with the same families. Our children leave this community on a regular basis, and the individuals that sit on boards in this community represent the same families with the same voice and the same ideas. Change comes about when there are voices that represent this community citywide. I don't believe that nepotism changes anything. In order for this community to change, we have to be able to expand what is happening in this community that affects everyone in this community. There are voices and strong voices in this community that are not being represented because we have people that work in offices, who have family members that sit on boards. We have family members that are running organizations and making decisions for individuals within this community that they know nothing about. It is time, Mr. Mayor, that when you start looking at appointees, that you look completely around this entire community. There are many of us that would like to volunteer. There are many of us that are doing things in this community that nobody else recognizes. It is time that others are given opportunities. There are plenty of us that have degrees. There are plenty of us that have worked and had 186 plus people under them that are more than capable of sitting on boards. There are plenty of us that have sat on boards. I myself have sat on NHS's board for 4 years. The voices of this community go beyond 4 families. We have people that have sat on this board that would like to retain those seats and have done a very good job on Housing's board, on NHS's board, on Township's board. We must consider the other voices within this community. And I'm not saying that individuals that are being appointed are not qualified, but we must stop using nepotism as a means of trying to grow this community. Thank you for your time.
That concludes public comments. We now move to item 4, the consent agenda. Is there any item that a member of the council wants to remove for further discussion and debate? Seeing no such request, is there a motion for approval of the consent agenda as it stands?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Bradshaw, Alderperson Bradshaw moves for approval of the consent agenda, seconded by Alderman Keister. Consent agenda has upon it the city treasurer's report on cash and fund balances for the period ending August 31st, 2016, the city treasurer's monthly investment report for the same period, the police department report of activities for August 2016, the fire department's report of activities for August 2016, the building permit report of activities for August 2016, approval of resolution 2016-46, which is a resolution for temporary closure of streets for the Freeport High School homecoming parade, which is, by the way, scheduled for Wednesday, October 12th, 2016. Approval of the motor fuel tax amounts in the amount of $1,655.40. Approval of the water and sewer bills payable in the amount of $316,729.94. Approval of the payroll for the pay period ending September 3rd, 2016, in the amount of $408,730.94. And finally, approval of the finance bills payable totaling $1,082,351.33. Madam Clerk, there having been a motion for approval and a second for the consent agenda's approval, would you please call the roll?
Clem.
Aye.
McClanathan.
Aye.
Ross.
Aye.
Miller.
Aye.
Busker.
Aye.
Brashaw.
Aye.
Keister.
Aye.
Chesney.
Aye.
That passes 8-0.
We now come to item 5, which is an appointment to the Housing Authority Board effective immediately. Madam Clerk, could you please read this appointment?
This is an acceptance of an appointment to the Housing Authority Board effective immediately. Mayor James L. Gitz appoints Greta Harrell to the Housing Authority Board to replace Sarah Carter, whose term has already expired. This appointment shall be effective until April 31st, 2020.
Is Ms. Harrell present? Could you
Mayor,
Yes.
just a brief question. Looking at the agenda and the appointment, it said October 31st. I thought I heard April 31st. Which is it? Sorry.
October 31st?
Okay,
If I
thanks.
heard it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I noticed that as well. I assumed that was just a misspoken.
Okay, all right, thank you.
First, before I introduce Ms. Harrell for any questions the council may have, let me explain this appointment. There seems to be controversy on every one of these appointments because somebody happens not to be happy. I made a pledge from the very beginning as we fill out these appointment boards that A, I would look for qualified candidates, and B, I'd look for some new candidates. I also select from the candidate pool that is selected. My decision to appoint Ms. Harrell is not based on any particular family affiliation. I'm not aware of a broad network of the Harrell family to control city government, township government, or any other government. I appointed Greta because I thought that her experience at the school district, especially as an assistant to the superintendent, gave her a lot of insight into how boards operate and how to bring effectiveness to a board. It's not a reflection on anyone else. It's a reflection upon the qualifications that she brings to this position, which, by the way, include a university degree. I also want to make it clear that just because we appoint one person to a board doesn't mean that there aren't other positions there. As far as I'm concerned, everybody has a cut of the apple. So I bring Ms. Harrell's appointment to you because I think that she'll add real value to the board, and I also think that it helps periodically to bring some new blood in. So with that, Ms. Harrell, perhaps you would like to add any comments that you wish to the council, and we'll entertain any questions we might have before we take up a full debate on this nomination.
I have a short statement I could share.
Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for this opportunity to share my reasons and qualifications as a possible candidate for the board of Freeport Housing Authority. First of all, as a lifetime resident of Freeport, it is my desire to become more involved in my community. Although I feel that I am familiar with the issues facing our community, I would like to learn more and to become more involved on a deeper level. I believe that given the opportunity, each one of us could contribute some small part of ourselves to make a difference and to make this community one that others could model. When I was asked to serve on the Housing Authority Board, I was excited about the opportunity to be able to contribute my skills and talents towards making that difference. I believe that I am well qualified for this position. For the past 16 years, I have served as secretary to the Board of Education for Freeport School District. I have a good understanding of how a board functions. I have a strong knowledge of the rules governing boards of public bodies, and I believe that the skills that I've obtained while serving in my current capacity make me a worthy candidate for the position. Thank you.
Mayor Gitz.
Questions? Yes, Alderperson Bradshaw.
Thank you. Ms. Harrell, first of all, I just want to say thank you for agreeing to take this position on the Housing Authority Board. They always can use new blood and new ideas. Ms. Carter, whose commission just expired, was a wonderful person. I had the pleasure of working with her on the board. And I won't get to work with you, but I wish you the best. And I know you have a lot to offer. Looking at your resume, it was very impressive.
Are there any other questions in the council? Comments?
Mr. Mayor,
Alderman Clem.
I'd just like to say that I had the privilege of working with Greta at the school district for many years while I was on the school board. And also the position that she's in does make her, I believe, very well qualified for where she's going to, and also knows about matters that are held in executive sessions, things that should not go out into the public and stuff, and I believe that she would be a very strong candidate for the position. And I would make a motion to move her position forward. Her name
Second.
forward.
Second.
It's moved by Alderman Clem, seconded by Alderman Chesney to approve this appointment. Is there further discussion or comments? Seeing nothing further from the council and no further discussion or debate, Madam Clerk, please take the roll on the motion to approve.
Clem.
Aye.
McClanathan.
Aye.
Ross.
Aye.
Miller.
Aye.
Busker.
Aye.
Brashaw.
Aye.
Keister.
Aye.
Chesney.
Aye.
That passes 8-0.
Thank you.
Congratulations. We now come to item 6, which is also an appointment. Madam Clerk, could you please read this appointment into the record?
This is an acceptance of an appointment to the Historic Preservation Commission. Effective immediately, Mayor James L. Gitz appoints Steve Schlomp to the Historic Preservation Commission. This appointment shall be effective until February 28th, 2019.
Mr. Slomp is not present with us tonight. You do have his credentials in front of you. In addition to what is listed in his application, he also owns a business on Spring Street that specializes in antiques. If you see what he's done with the building, I think he's a living illustration of the kind of upgrades we'd love to see in our downtown buildings. I do want to acknowledge to the council that Mr. Schlomp has a business in the city but does not live in the city. Attorney Phillips and I have checked the ordinances. There's not a residency requirement in the city to be on the Preservation Committee. But if that is a concern to the council, I want all the cards on the table. He has expressed to me several times his interest in historic preservation. We have some vacancies on that commission, and I thought it would be a good fit. It is in that spirit that I bring you his appointment. Are there any questions? Alex, I think you've also dealt with Mr. Slomp too, right?
Mayor,
Yes.
Alderman Keister,
motion to approve.
is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Alderman Clem.
if I could, the thing that you brought up, just so that everybody knows, Mr. Schlomp lives in Royal Oaks. I had the pleasure of sitting with him on the one seminar that Freeport Downtown Development had on things that could instantly be fixed before some of the things before cruise night and some of the things that were going on. And it was very refreshing to sit with him, and he really has a positive attitude on downtown Freeport, and that will be a great asset.
If I can also add one other comment or share one other observation to the council. We tend to have a lot of the same voices that we hear from on preservation issues. I thought that Mr. Schlomp, although he's involved in those issues, being on the periphery would add another voice to it that we don't always hear. There is a motion and a second. The motion is made by Alderman Keister, seconded by Alderman Busker. Is there any further questions or comments? If not, Madam Clerk, please take the roll in the nomination of Mr. Schlomp to the Historic Preservation Commission.
Clem.
Aye.
McClanathan.
Aye.
Ross.
Aye.
Miller.
Aye.
Busker.
Aye.
Brashaw.
Aye.
Keister.
Aye.
Chesney.
Aye.
That passes 8-0.
We now come to ordinance's second reading. We have second reading of ordinance 2016-47. Madam Clerk, would you please read this ordinance a second time?
This is a second reading of ordinance 2016-47, an ordinance amending chapters 220, council, 226, mayor, 228, city clerk, and 230, city treasurer, to fix the inauguration date for elected officials.
When we last discussed this ordinance, the council had expressed an interest in some discussion of salaries for this position, although that's not directly a part of this ordinance. I did want to affirm to the council that we do have people working on that report, which we have pledged to you by October 1st. Is there any further discussion or debate in regard to the contents of ordinance 2016-47? If not, Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll on passage of ordinance 2016-47?
Clem.
Aye.
McClanathan.
Aye.
Ross.
Aye.
Miller.
Aye.
Busker.
Aye.
Brashaw.
Aye.
Keister.
Aye.
Chesney.
Aye.
That passes 8-0.
We now come to ordinance's first reading. The first item under ordinance's first reading is item 8, which is ordinance 2016-48. This is a change of zoning. Madam Clerk, would you please read this ordinance into the record?
This is a special ordinance for variation permit or amendment of the codified ordinances of Freeport, Illinois. A petition was filed by Don and Catherine Carpenter for the property located at 1402 Morningside Drive, Freeport, Illinois, with the PIN 18-19-05-228-001. The relief sought by the documents on file is a change of zoning from the M1 Limited Manufacturing District to the R3 One Family Resident District. This ordinance was unanimously recommended to the council by the Planning Commission in their meeting held on September 8th, 2016, and there were no written objections filed on the petition. Therefore, council may take final action on this reading.
Mr. Mayor,
Bef-
do you want to have Alex report?
I do.
Go, Kincher.
Okay. Mr. Mills, I know that this went before the Planning Commission. Could you summarize that report, its contents, for the benefit of the council and the public?
Yes, this is a rezoning from M1 Limited Manufacturing to R3 One Family Residence. The parcel in question is just northwest of the county jail, within the city city limits on Morningside Drive. It's a one-family residence. It's always been used as a one-family residence, but in that particular portion of town, there's some larger areas that are still M1 Limited Manufacturing zoning from what I believe to be a long time ago. So this has come up, I think, as it has previously, when someone is ready to sell their home. Lending institutions don't necessarily like to lend on a property that's zoned manufacturing if it has a house. And that's what this situation is. So they came to the Planning Commission, filed a petition and came to the Planning Commission to do that zoning change. The recommendation from the staff was for approval, and it now comes before City Council for approval.
Alderman Clem, excuse me, I think you had some questions.
Sure. I had attended this meeting, and I thought they did a very nice job of bringing it forward, but it also, I think, brought some additional awareness. I know Alex knew there was areas of this, but there's some areas that are just all zoned M1. And it not only creates a difficulty on two things. Number one, that the person can't sell it or anything like that, but number two, it limits us considerably to how you can go after a property for cleanup or what a person can have on that property and everything else. So in this case, they couldn't even sell it to their son because there wasn't a bank that would take the paper for it being an M1. So I think it gives us the opportunity to take a look at some of these areas that are all M1 and possibly do some things to change that. Because each time now everybody comes forward, it costs some money to advertise it and to go through the whole thing. But I would support it and make a motion to move it forward.
I'll second. Motion to approve.
It's been moved and seconded to approve ordinance 2016-48. And as indicated in the explanation at the outset, since this was unanimously approved at the Planning Commission level and there were no objections, this is final passage. But before we go to the vote, is there any other questions, comments, or concerns that a member of the council has? Alderperson Brashaw.
Thank you. Mr. Mills, I realize I'm not against this. I guess I should state that right away. I was just curious, are all the other lots around that zoned M1? Is it surrounded by M1s?
Mr. Mills?
The parcel directly north is zoned R3, so this would not be a case of spot zoning, if that might have been your concern.
Follow up?
Alderperson Bradshaw.
Thank you. That did answer that part of the question. And then also this residence, is it on an extremely large lot that would be, say, for industrial purpose? Or is it in a segregated, much smaller lot that would be basically residential variety of lot?
Mr. Mills?
This lot, it would be mainly suited for residential purposes. There's a storage outbuilding and a small accessory shed. The owner of this lot does own the lots to the south, which are not in the city boundaries, but in the county and are zoned agricultural. But, you know, when he's mowing the grass, it doesn't make a difference. He owns both of them. And
Follow up one more time.
Alderperson Bradshaw.
Thank you. And so this person, the outbuildings are not used for any kind of business purpose at this time, so it's not going to be mixed use?
no, just storage of home goods and the like.
Excellent. Thank you.
Is there any other questions or concerns? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please take the roll on the motion to approve ordinance 2016-48.
Clem.
Aye.
McClanathan.
Aye.
Ross.
Aye.
Miller.
Aye.
Busker.
Aye.
Brashaw.
Aye.
Keister.
Aye.
Chesney.
Aye.
That passes 8-0.
Moving right along, we now come to item 9, which is first reading of ordinance 2016-49, which is dealing with appeals in the building department. Madam Clerk, would you please read ordinance 2016-49?
This is an ordinance amending Chapter 1442, Administration Generally, Section 1440.03, Appeals of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Freeport, Illinois.
Mr. Mills, I believe this was coming from the Building Commission. Would you, again, summarize for the benefit of the council and the public what is being asked in this ordinance?
Sure. So previously, we had a appeal of a condemnation come to the Building Commission, and we noted that the adopted codes say 20 calendar days is when they must be heard by that body. Ordinance provides 5 working days from the date of a decision, not just a condemnation, but it could be a stop work order or any other decision of the building commissioner. So in effect, when this was noticed, it was simply posed to the building commission. What do you think? Do you like how it is? Would you like to change it so it's more in line? And after discussion, 14 calendar days was reached by the members unanimously. And so that's this ordinance essentially just adjusts the existing ordinance from 5 working days in which an appeal must be made to 14 calendar days. Several advantages. The primary one is that if service by U.S. mail is irregular or mail happens to not be picked up or anything else, someone would still have that window to appeal. They, of course, always have the opportunity to appeal on the very next day after a decision is made. But this would hopefully prevent the case of anybody missing their window for a right to be heard.
Questions from the council?
Mayor,
Alderman Keister.
I'm glad to see this come forth. When we asked for the building commission to be reformed and going, it's stuff like this. I mean, it seems minor, but it's stuff like this that needed to be corrected. And I'm hoping that this is only one of many that's going to come out of that's going to be corrected and standardized as it needed to be done a while back. So I'd like to make a motion to move this forward.
Second.
It's moved and seconded to move this ordinance forward past first reading. Before we defer this for further action, is there any other questions or comments from the council?
Mayor.
Alderman Chesney.
Thank you, Mayor. Director Mills, was there discussion on working days over calendar days, perhaps adopting working days consistent with what we've done in the past? What was the thought process on that?
Mr. Mills.
The thought process was by going to calendar days, if a decision has been made, by the building commissioner that somebody feels they don't agree with, the thought is that it was probably made for a reason. So 14 calendar days would say, if it happens to be Columbus Day tomorrow, you still need to be working on, figuring out either how to fix your problem or if you're gonna appeal, you need to keep working on that too. Again, 5 working days, you have to look a little bit harder at what the holidays are and schedules versus 14 calendar days is 14 calendar days.
Follow up, Mayor.
Alderman Chesney.
Thank you. And the only reason I bring this up, and I'm in favor of this proposed ordinance, I just would wonder if we should even allow more time for the people to be able to appeal. The thought process behind that is that if somebody is appealing, a calendar day doesn't help them because in many cases they're going to have to retain counsel. So where they would be on the clock, so to speak, would be under working days and not calendar days. So for the public, working days is more important than calendar days because while they can try to figure it out, there's not a lot of attorneys that work Columbus Day short of a very expensive fees. So I don't know what the council feels, but I don't know if I might feel a little more comfortable with working days and replace the calendar days. It's a little more consistent and generous for those that have a appeal process, but that's just my thought.
Any, excuse me, any additional discussion?
Mayor,
Alderperson Bradshaw.
thank you. Mr. Mills, what is your thought on that? Do you believe that 14 calendar days is sufficient for someone to perhaps hire personal counsel to appeal a decision?
Mr. Mills?
I do. The adopted codes being 20 calendar days, a 14 calendar day provision is slightly less time, but it's still a larger window than the 5 working days that currently exists. I guess too, I would just say that I think Alderman Clem actually made the motion for the 14 calendar days if he might want to speak to this as well.
No problem. I'll be happy to.
Alderman Clem.
Sure, there was discussion back and forth on this. I didn't happen to be here for the final one, but we discussed it the month before at some length. One of the main things is to keep the process moving somewhat. If you get it out 20 days and then somebody appeals or does something, then it gets out and pretty soon you're talking a considerable amount of time down the line. Okay, I think this came up simply because it wasn't, you had to do something instantly, and all it would actually have to be as an appeal is to come forward or write a letter just saying, I don't agree with this, and you've met the 14 days at that point, and then you can negotiate back and forth of what things to do. So I think there was, the biggest consideration was to keep keep it fair, keep the things moving forward, and not allow it to go out a long period of time.
Thank you. Follow up one more time.
Alderperson Bradshaw.
Thank you, and I appreciate the double explanation. For the listening public, I had to read this about 4 times to figure out what it actually says. Any person directly aggrieved by any decision of the building commissioner may appeal such decision to the building commission. The appeal shall be made by giving written notice of such appeal to the building commissioner within, and they changed the amount of days. My question, I guess, for you, Mr. Mills, is can you give us an example? I mean, so that the listening public could understand, maybe give us 2 examples of something that would be in the process of needing an appeal.
Mr. Mills.
Sure. One example would be if a stop work order was issued and the contractor felt the codes weren't being read properly by the building inspector or someone, or they, thought that the method they were using to repair was good enough, and our inspector said, no, you need to stop work order. They could then appeal to the building commission to say, I don't agree with this decision, and here's why. They would have the opportunity to state their case, as would the other party, and the inspector, for instance, in this case. And the commission would decide whether that's lifted or stands. Another issue would be with a condemnation, for instance. Someone might disagree that the building is fit for occupancy. In other words, they might say, I can still live here while I fix this. And we have cases where we say, no, you can't. It really, you can go in to fix it once you pull your permit, but you can't live there while, there's some condition that needs remediated to the point where being there the entire time is not good. So that would be another case where if they don't agree with that, they can go to the building commission and say, I don't agree.
Mr. Mayor?
Alderman Clem.
The Alderman Bradshaw, the one that came forward, I think that really brought some discussion on this was a house that was some people were living in, and a condemnation order came through, and we got all kinds of pictures of everything that it was, and there were so many things wrong. I mean, everything from electric to plumbing to roof to mold to, I mean, you could just keep writing down the list and it was all there. So then it was a matter of, no, it's not safe for the person to be in that house at that time with the multiple things wrong. You know, if it's a couple things wrong, they may come back and say, yeah, I think you can rewire these couple outlets or do something like this, but this was just so many things. And I think also it helped give you a chance to see. It did, at least on the building commission, some of the things that the building department deals with and has to make a decision in a short period of time. And I think this will help them do that. I just have one other question, if I could, Mr. Mayor.
Alderman Clem.
Is this something that you need move forward rather than tonight, or is it?
Mr. Mills.
It could wait and be held over until it is passed on second reading. We would still be working under the 5 working day provision. So unless you wanted to change it right now, otherwise we could wait till the next regular meeting.
I'd make a motion to move it forward as far as to be official on second reading.
Second.
What am I trying to say?
You're making a motion to suspend the rules for
Yes,
immediate
thank you.
consideration? Okay,
brain
and it's
dead.
seconded by whom? Alderman Keister. Okay, a motion to suspend the rules is non-debatable and requires an extraordinary majority. So the vote you're about to cast is not on the motion itself for approval. It is merely as to whether to immediately consider for passage this ordinance. Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll on that motion to suspend the rules for immediate consideration?
Mayor, before we do that, can I just note that there was a Scrivener's error on the title? It should be chapter 1440 as the section number that was read out loud is section 1440.
Yes.
Okay. Clem,
Aye.
McClanathan,
Aye.
Ross,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Busker,
Aye.
Brashaw,
Aye.
Keister,
Aye.
Chesney.
Aye.
That passes 8-0.
Mayor.
Ordinance 2016-49 is now before the council for immediate discussion debate. Is there any further discussion?
Mayor.
Alderman Keister.
It's for Director Mills, with the calendar days versus working days. You had alluded to another ordinance that had it in that manner. What is the common theme in most of the ordinance? Is it working days or is it calendar days?
Mr. Mills?
The adopted codes, so the International Building Code, existing building code, property maintenance code that we have adopted as a city, those have the 20, they just say 20 days, so that's presumed 20 calendar days. The existing ordinance right now that Freeport has on the books, I think, and I looked, it's back to 1989, says 5 working days. So that was where we would address this. Something else that I realized that's not in the memo as we were discussing this, you know, mail is still delivered on Saturdays, but that's not a working day. So that's another opportunity for somebody to get notice of a decision and start working on their appeal, for instance, but it isn't a working day, so it's kind of another difference there.
Thank you.
Mayor.
Alderman Chesney.
Thank you. And why I bring up the working versus calendar days is just a function as to how friendly we want to be to the people that are going to be impacted, right? So working days is, you know, I guess it's going to be softer than calendar days. So that's why I think that for my purposes, or my position would be is we would want as long as, you know, what's reasonable for somebody to have an appeal to come before the commission and say, well, they got a problem. I think the narrow window really impacted the appeal process. But if 20 days was the standard, are you saying, Mr. Mills, then we are actually more stringent than the understood codes?
We would be slightly stricter, yes.
I'd like to make a motion to amend it to 20 days.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, and when you say 20 days, 20 calendar days or 20 working days?
Working days. No, excuse me, calendar days.
Okay.
Because that would be consistent with the code.
All right, there is an amendment made on the floor. The amendment is to change 14 calendar days to 20 calendar days.
Mr. Mayor.
Discussion is only in order on the amendment, not on the contents of the ordinance itself. Alderman Clem.
Sure. I think the problem with extending the days is if you get a structure that is crucial as either falling down as far as needs immediate work, so on and so forth, and somebody stands there and debates it, and then, you know, there's an extra 5 days and something could happen. I think that was the reason we talked about the 5 days was not fair, the 20 days was a little long just because of that situation. You can have many of these that, I don't think we've had many of them in houses, okay? There are some that could possibly be coming up that could be in that position.
Mayor?
Alderman Keister.
I have to agree with Alderman Clem on this one. With the examples Director Mills gave and stuff, I don't know if I'd be comfortable extending it out past the 14 days, because if you're talking about condemned buildings and that kind of stuff, I don't think you want to extend it out any further than you need to and get immediate action to get something done. That's just my opinion on it.
Mayor.
Alderman Jesse.
Well, I appreciate that, Alderman Clem, but that's not entirely the whole story. If there is an item that is of immediate danger and a threat to the community, we would then take immediate action and we would remedy it right away. We wouldn't even wait. I would point to the items that we've taken care downtown to where when we had collapses or if there was an imminent threat, we have the ability to come in immediately and condemn that building and secure it if needed. So this is the standard that I would think that it would be more business friendly and it would provide a better service to the community to extend the ability for somebody to have a grievance with the city. 5 days, of course, didn't work at all. So how I came to 20 was the established time period that seems to be adopted by many of our codes. But I asked Mr. Mills, well, are we more restrictive than what the standard is? And he said yes. So I would say that we still have mechanisms in place if those situations arise for us to remedy. Am I incorrect with that?
Mayor?
Mr. Mayor.
Not necessarily. I'm sorry.
Alderman Ross asking.
Alderman Ross.
Yes. I'm sitting here listening to the conversation. My question is, couldn't we just put an emergency clause in there? To help render?
Here's what I would recommend, just will of the chair, if you will. My sense is that the council wants to strike the right balance between immediacy and having a decision and having an appeal, and there's different points of view. I think that you can defer the whole debate for a couple weeks and give it a cooling off period, or you can pass something now and adjust it later. My concern is condemnations and things of immediacy. Now, I was just having a conversation with Attorney Phillips, and my question was to affirm what I believe to be already true. If we condemn a building, somebody wants to appeal it, is it condemned during that period of time and unoccupable? He says yes. So I think some of the concerns that people have can be handled in this. Personally, don't care whether it's 14 working days, 14 calendar days, or even 20 days. I do think that we should be somewhat careful in our balance. So, you know, if the council doesn't have a clear consensus on this, I just want to offer up, we can defer this and we can take some time to sort it out, or you can pass something right now. Did we answer your question, Alderman Ross?
Yeah, basically what I was saying, maybe, I was thinking of more of a special emergency clause. So if it could be, you have your days in there.
Well, keep in mind, if we had an emergency on a demolition, this doesn't apply.
It won't play. Thank you.
Mayor.
Alderman Clonathan, did you have a question or comment?
I was just going to indicate that if we don't have some clarity as to what these situations would apply, I'd be open to, I didn't make the motion, but I'd be open to, that we're not in a time emergency, so we could just wait for a couple weeks. But someone else is going to have to make that motion, I think.
Okay.
Hey,
What's the will of the council? Alderman Clem?
Sure. Based on the fact that, let's face it, right now we have less time, so if we put it off, it isn't a matter of something's going to be wrong, and then this way it's gonna be totally wrong. So I think the easy thing for me would be to possibly be to take and withdraw the, motion to suspend the rules, if you can.
Counselor,
Life's gonna go on either way. We
is
can
it,
work
is it
this
just
out.
simpler to defer action? I mean, where do you want to end up? You want to go back to the original bill? Do you want to go through the amendment? Do you want to table it until the next meeting? That's going to determine the motion you make.
Mayor, can I just make a quick suggestion?
Sure.
You know, I don't know.
Alderman Chesney is recognized for a point of order.
Thank you. You know, the bill before us, you know, if we want to defer the action or if we want to, you know, kick this over, I don't know that I have a particular preference. I just, you know, I mean, right now we have an amendment to amend the present ordinance for consideration. What information are you expecting us to learn in 2 weeks that is other than what we have today? I mean, it's really just a preference, right? So do we want more or less time for people to file a grievance with the city? If we want to have less time, the vote is no. If we want them to have more time, the vote is yes. But I think what we've already established that the mayor cleaned up is that if it's a critical situation, we still have a mechanism in place to respond. So I don't know what we're going to learn in 2 weeks other than
Mayor?
we waited.
Alderman McClenathan.
I know we kind of threw that out at you guys, you know, a curveball. How confident are you in our mechanisms if we pass something tonight? I mean, obviously we can change it later, but
I'm confident that no matter what you do, we'll be okay. And if we're not okay, I will be coming back to you in October
Sure.
if we have a specific example and say, maybe this isn't a good idea after all. We do have an amendment on the floor. The amendment is for 20 calendar days. So I'd like to focus on that and dispose of that amendment. What is the will of the council? Is there any other discussion on whether we should have 14 versus 20 days?
Mr. Mayor,
Alderman Clem.
I think we should, call the roll on that amendment.
Okay. If there is no further discussion, we will call the roll on the amendment, not on the bill, but on the amendment. The amendment, just so that we're clear, is to change the wording of 14 days for an appeal to 20 calendar days. So if you're in favor of a longer appeal time, vote yes. If you are in favor of a shorter appeal time, vote no.
Clem,
Yes.
McClanathan,
aye.
Ross,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Busker,
Aye.
Brashaw,
Aye.
Keister,
No.
Chesney.
Aye.
That amendment passes 7-1.
Okay, we now have the ordinance as amended before the council. Is there any further discussion, comments, or questions? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll on the motion to approve as amended.
Clem,
Aye.
McClanathan,
Aye.
Ross,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Busker,
Aye.
Brashaw,
Aye.
Keister,
Aye.
Chesney.
Aye.
That passes 8-0.
Good.
Mr. Mayor,
Alderman Clem,
could I just make a comment?
you're recognized to make a comment.
One of the things I think that we did here, I think that was important, was discuss both sides of this. It wasn't earth-shocking each way. The big thing I think that took the consideration for different places off was the fact that nobody could be in the building when it was condemned. So I appreciate the explanation on that. Thank you.
We now come to item 10, which is first reading of ordinance 2016-50. This is a variance that relates to actually bows. It does say firearms, but it's actually bows. Madam Clerk, please read the ordinance.
This is an ordinance granting a variance to Chapter 692, Section 692.01, discharging firearms and other weapons of the codified ordinances of the City of Freeport.
Okay. The council will recall that on an annual basis in September, we often receive a request from the country club owner/property to allow limited deer hunting. So this ordinance, contrary to its foreboding title of discharging firearms, is really simply to recognize that bow hunting will be allowed according to state regulations on the property that is identified by a shaded area as a part of the ordinance that you received. The archery deer season runs from October 1st, 2016 to January 15, 2017. Usually this ordinance has been accompanied by a requirement to give notice to surrounding property owners so that they know what's going on. I have been contacted last week in regard to the desire to implement this ordinance, so there is some time grounds for moving it along. That's the spirit in which this ordinance is brought to the council. If the council is comfortable with it, we would ask for suspension of the rules so that we can get everything in place by October.
Mayor,
Alderman Keister.
memory serves me, this has been many years we've been doing this, and as far as I know, there's never been any incident or accident off of this. So I would make a motion to approve.
Second.
It's moved by Alderman Keister, seconded by Alderperson Bradshaw to approve ordinance 2016-50. Is there any questions in the council?
Mr. Mayor,
Alderman Clem.
I'd make a motion to suspend the rules.
Second.
It's moved by Alderman Clem, seconded by Alderperson Bradshaw to suspend the rules for immediate discussion and debate. That motion is non-debatable and requires an extraordinary majority. A yes vote is to suspend the rules for immediate consideration. A no vote is to honor the usual waiting period. Madam Clerk, please take the vote on the motion to suspend the rules.
Clem.
Aye.
McClanathan.
Aye.
Ross.
Aye.
Miller.
Aye.
Busker.
Aye.
Brashaw.
Aye.
Keister.
Aye.
Chesney.
Abstain.
That motion passes unanimous, almost unanimous.
Ordinance 2016-50 is now before the council for immediate passage. Is there any further discussion?
Mayor,
Alderman McClanathan.
thank you. In order to implement it, it needed the blessing basically of DNR, correct?
That is correct.
And any other such mechanisms or forms that we'd want to use in the future would probably have to go through DNR as well, because they regulate throughout the city in variances to the general rules on this, correct?
Yes, there's an interplay between state regulations and our local ordinances. You know, normally we don't allow people to run around with a bow and arrow shooting at things. We make a special exception for deer at certain times of the year. And this ordinance has been pretty much approved, as far as I know, in recent memory on an annual basis for the last 20 years.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? If not, Madam Clerk, please take the roll on passage of this ordinance.
Clem.
Aye.
McClanathan.
Aye.
Ross.
Aye.
Miller.
Aye.
Busker.
Aye.
Brashaw.
Aye.
Keister.
Aye.
Chesney.
Abstain.
That motion, the passage of the ordinance 2016-50 is passed.
Thank you. We now come to item 11 under resolutions, Resolution 2016-47. Madam Clerk, would you please read this resolution?
This is a resolution to approve an intergovernmental agreement between the City of Freeport, Illinois and the Forestville Valley Community Unit School District 221 for the use of the voluntary services of city engineer and city equipment to design and oversee the building of a softball/baseball field complex.
Okay. The council will note that when the packets went out last Thursday, we provided you with a copy of this resolution, which I believe had been provided by the attorneys for Forestville's Valley Community Unit District. At that time, Attorney Phillips had not had a chance to review the agreement. Attorney Phillips does have some concerns about the agreement. There are amendments that have been presented before you. Those are underlined in the new attachment. I'm going to ask him to walk through them. There were some concerns about conflict of interest, which I think have been resolved. Keep in mind that this is services performed gratis, not for compensation, which does change the picture considerably. So with your indulgence, I'm going to ask Attorney Phillips to itemize the issues in the changed ordinance, which you have a copy of or should have a copy of, and then I'll recognize the city engineer for some comment.
Thank you, Mr.
And I did ask both of them to meet this afternoon and to discuss all these issues. So hopefully we've connected all the dots and the circle is closed.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. on the Exhibit 1, which is the actual agreement that's attached to the resolution, you will see the changes that I made are underlined or stricken through, and there's only one word that's stricken through, so it's basically underlined. Some are procedural, some are substantive. There are some questions I had about liability, whose insurance is going to apply, but it's clearly that in paragraph 1 on page 4 of the packet, you see under, in section 1, I've added wording then to ensure that the work that we are talking about to be done by Mr. Gallagher is going to be done not during city working hours, but on his own time, because he's volunteering his time for the school district. He's a resident of the school district, but the reason there was a conflict of interest concern is because he's also an elected official from the school district. He's on the Board of Education for the Forestville Valley Community Unit School District. And I didn't want to have that to adversely affect his employment with the city or his position on the school board. So I made sure it's done on his own time. There's going to be no pay for this time whatsoever. There's no expenses paid to him for this by the city of Freeport. The city will get reimbursed, just like we charge other units of government who use our computer software and our equipment for these in similar intergovernmental agreements. The city will be reimbursed by the school district. Also, in paragraph 2 and subparagraph B, if you notice the last sentence, the last 5 lines or so, I also included a complete release of any and all claims by the school district against the city or any of its officials or employees, agents, officers, etc. However, now that's not going to affect third parties. If somebody claims something was done, there still may be a liability. But since he's doing this with the blessing, our coverage from the Illinois Municipal League Risk Management Association should extend, and we should protect the city. And those are the major issues I made. The key thing that came down is we had to talk about the liability issues. We had to talk about current professional liability insurance. And I wanted to make sure that since there's no money being paid, there was no direct or indirect financial interest that Mr. Gallagher would have in this contract, so that it would raise a question of violation of the Illinois Corrupt Practices Act or similar state statutes.
Mr. Gallagher presented a draft of this. You've seen the amendments, comments.
Thank you, Mayor. Specifically, I just wanted to point out this being a volunteer project, multiple contractors, other staff members at the school district volunteering their time. I certainly will not accept any compensation. I do this because I like to volunteer for things. It's an engineering background, and I look at this as something that I do in my free time. I certainly will not mix my business here with this work. Being that everybody else is a volunteer basis within this project, it's going to be weeknights, Saturdays, that kind of thing. I don't anticipate any work conflicts, but I certainly understand that these kind of agreements tend not to be formalized. You know, somebody takes their work home with them, they do things on the side with the equipment. I really don't believe in that. I think the citizens of Freeport have paid for AutoCAD services. They've paid for the software. If I'm going to use it outside of these walls, it needs to be reimbursed back to the taxpayers. So I recommended to our board that they draft something like this if they wanted me to participate. If not, I think it's a good use of tax dollars to where the district doesn't have to buy these pieces of equipment and we can get reimbursed. The agreement is for 4 years. That's not to just extend this out forever. Since it's a volunteer-based project, we just anticipate it'll take a while. You do a little bit each year and kind of chip away at it, which is why it's not cost prohibitive for the district to buy an AutoCAD license, which are annual subscriptions. We currently have that here at the city, so I actually looked to probably get the municipality reimbursed for pretty much all of our AutoCAD services for the next 4 years. So that's one less line item we have to pay for. out of our budget. So ultimately, I wanted to make sure that the risk or any liability was transferred back to the school district, not bring the citizens of Freeport or the municipality into it, which is why I requested the intergovernmental agreement. So I realize that brings this somewhat to the forefront, but ultimately I simply just want to volunteer and make sure that citizens of Freeport understand what this is and that they're not getting the wrong end of this, that they're getting reimbursed for anything that they're contributing for.
Mayor?
Yes, Alderperson Miller.
Sean, thank you for your transparency on it. I appreciate that. Just had a question on some wording I think seems to kind of contradict itself. The very top of this, it says that it's an intergovernmental agreement for the volunteer use of the city engineer and city equipment. So there it states that it's all voluntary, but yet if you go over to 2A, it says the school district agrees to pay all the costs incurred by the city for the design and oversight of the building of the field complex. Such costs shall include any actual cost to the city on time and material and technical equipment needed for the project. Seems to contradict itself.
I think the voluntary services relates to the time of the city engineer, not to the equipment. But I would also add that the title is descriptive as a summary, not legally binding. So what counts is, do you think there's an ambiguity in the agreement itself?
I would echo that. I mean, the intent was to volunteer, for me to volunteer my professional services. Anything above and beyond that was associated with the city of Freeport would be reimbursed.
Follow up?
Alderperson Miller.
Can you define technical equipment?
Be like the plotter, because we do have plotting abilities here for large-scale prints. Any computer work, any GIS work that might be utilized, rough layout, any CAD time associated with it, that be using a physical software or product that the city of Freeport owns. A level, we have surveying equipment for distance and site, so any of that related work would be still cost shared back to the city of Freeport.
One more question, Mayor.
Sure. Alderperson Miller.
I guess maybe it be to you, Mayor. Do you see any hesitancy on something like this because simply are we opening up a huge can of worms? Say, for instance, maybe Director Dole wants to take the forestry equipment and go do something outside of the city, and I mean, where does it stop? I'm just wondering if we do for one, how do you draw the line? Where does it quit?
Well, that's a traditional argument. The camel wants nose in the tent, I think, is the analogy that is often used. If everybody does this all the time, then yes, I think it would be a problem. And I guess the council, each member of the council has to ask themselves, is this a problem or precedent that you don't want to set? Answering only for myself, small school districts fight a budget battle that is particularly onerous right now because Springfield is not exactly generous, even with school funding. It's one of the few things that they have approved on a temporary budget. I look to the purpose here, which is to accord a way for a resident of that district to volunteer his time and his talents on behalf of the district that his children attend. Much the same way that you and I, attend to our kids and grandkids. My family spends quite a bit of time helping with a tumbling team. So as long as it's on his time, and as long as we're reimbursed for the use of equipment, at least in this circumstance, I'm willing to do thumbs up. If we had to cross this bridge all the time, my answer might be different. But I look to the intent and the fact that there's no compensation involved here, and that compensation issue is very important to me in making a decision to say I'm okay with this if the council's okay with it.
Mayor.
Alderman Keister.
Yes, first of all, I'd like to applaud Mr. Gallagher for even volunteering to do this. I'm sure it's going to be a lot of work. And as you pointed out, Mayor, in today's economy, if it weren't for volunteers like Mr. Gallagher and a few others, the stuff that they're trying to do here would not be able to be done. And in reference to reimbursement and stuff for the equipment on his cover page here, I think he explains that pretty clearly, where he says, in return, the city of Freeport would receive compensation for expenses accumulated from the use of the GIS and AutoCAD software and any large format printing used in designs similar to past agreements with Freeport Park District. The city has an opportunity to cover long-term software licensing costs and other operating expenses. So this has been done in the past, where he has used the equipment with other entities such as the Park District and got reimbursed for it. I like the idea of him doing it for his community, and the fact that in the process, we're going to benefit by getting reimbursement for some of the licensing for the software. So I would like to make a motion to approve this.
I'll second.
Okay.
Mayor?
We have a motion and a second, but I think there's other questions. So we'll start with Alderman Chesney.
Thank you. Engineer Gallagher, how many city hours do you anticipate being dedicated to this project?
Should be none.
Okay. Follow up, Mayor.
Alderman Chesney?
Mayor, to piggyback on Alderperson Miller's comments as it relates to, a slippery slope, entering, opening Pandora's box, if we had a couple of forestry workers that wanted to work in Lauren Township and borrow a couple of trucks, why are we renting out? I appreciate your love and closeness to the Fortune School District, but with all due respect, Fortune School District did not elect you. The city of Freeport did. And while I think it's important that we help out in emergency situations like we do in Mavis, I don't know that a school district that is in Ogle County is necessarily in line with our priorities. So what do we do when two city workers wants to borrow a couple of trucks and wants to work in the Florence Township, and they want to do this on the side and they'll reimburse us? Are we then going to be tasked with yet another intergovernmental agreement with Lauren Township? Or are we going to just selectively decide when we're going to exercise discretion and not? Because this is an unprecedented move that we would enter into an intergovernmental agreement with and loaning out our equipment to a taxing body that we don't overlap with.
Are you directing that to me?
I am.
Okay. I think there's a difference between trucks and regular equipment and the use of some equipment for design. But let's take this example a little further. We have been regularly promoting the use of working together with other taxing bodies. So it's not unprecedented for us to work with another taxing body, such as the Park District, and aggregate our bids, like on the street program. Now, that's a different situation, but to say it's without precedent, I don't think is entirely accurate. It's up to the council to decide. To me, if the city engineer can help a school district and people benefit from it, and we have no direct cost, I'm okay with that. You may not be, and that's okay. I mean, that's why we're debating this. I think it's far more transparent to bring this to the council and say, okay, here's all the things that we have identified as issues. Here's the amendment to take care of it. You tell us if you're comfortable with that. If the council says no, well, then no means no. We won't, the city engineer won't be donating his time to this project for that school district. If we do approve this, I think all it says is, in certain circumstances, if people want to volunteer their time, we're willing to allow that, providing we don't have liability that is going to come back and bite us.
Mayor.
Alderman McClanathan.
Thank you. I have kind of a series of questions with leave to go through a series of questions.
Sure.
Thank you. Engineer Gallagher, you're a salaried position, not an hourly position, correct?
That is correct.
And so you receive no overtime pay for excess hours work, is that correct?
That's correct.
So essentially any hours in excess that you work are a donation to the city?
That would be correct.
Furthermore, how many hours would you estimate that you work over a regular schedule per week, approximately? Not under oath or anything.
I typically come in at 7 and I leave at 6. Usually don't take a lunch, so that's 11 hours. And then once I put my kids to bed at 9, I pretty much work from 9 to about 1 in the morning. So I guess that'd be about 15 hours.
On city projects?
On city projects per day, since at least January.
Well, you answered the next one I was going to say. So you regularly, routinely take city projects home and work from them at home, do you?
That's correct.
And through that, do you use a laptop from the city or some city software?
Yes, I use our water and sewer laptop.
Okay, and that's got some of this, does that have the CAD software on it?
Correct.
Okay. And as you've mentioned before here, all that time that you would be spending on this is just volunteer time in excess to your city time on this project, correct?
That's correct.
And the only real city involvement is going to involve maybe either some laptop, computer, software, and then, as you maybe said, some of that printing. Is that generally the equipment we're talking about?
Correct.
And any equipment you do use, even if it's something a little more than that, well, we're going to be reimbursed for, correct?
That is correct.
So there'll be no extra cost to the city for this in this situation, correct?
Not that I anticipate.
Okay, and theoretically, you could have done this project in your own free time using the equipment that you had at home, and with the software, and frankly, you know, unless it popped up in the media or something, everyone would be none the wiser, right?
Correct. I think what was important for me to bring this to you is I'm directly competing with consultants at this point. I'm working on a project with resources that are not mine, and I felt that, you know, in order to, if I'm going to compete with the competition, it needs to be a level playing field. So I at least need to get your approval in order to do that.
Thank you. And theoretically, doing a project like this is outside of some of the scope of the duties you've been doing before. So theoretically, this would make you a better engineer and a more useful asset to the city going forward?
I hope so. I'm learning a lot, especially about ball diamonds, at least to the Park District.
All right, Mayor, I just close with, you know, given the volunteer time that's here, the significant amount of excess hours that we all know Engineer Gallagher does, which I assume probably puts him in the top tier, if not the top of employees with the city, and the fact that we're going to get reimbursed for our time here, I'm quite confident that even if this sets a slight precedent, it would be a high hurdle for others to meet to the parameters of this, and I would wholeheartedly support it.
Mayor?
Alderperson Bradshaw.
Thank you. I'm also in support of this, but I do have a question regarding liability. I do see that there's a waiver here that unconditionally releases, acquits, and discharges the city and everyone from claims and complaints. I guess my question is this, to council, do we have to purchase additional liability insurance? Does the school district purchase additional liability insurance just regarding the engineering project?
Attorney Phillips.
I'm not aware of us needing to purchase more liability insurance. The school district is not only releasing the city of any and all claims by it, but it's also agreed to indemnify the city for any and all losses we may suffer as a result of this contract.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Sure.
Comments? Alderman Clem.
When I first heard this, I thought, you know, it was kind of like, you got to be kidding me, because Alderman Chesney was the one that briefly brought it to me and said, hey, did you see this in the pack? And I said, no, I haven't looked at it yet. You know, you first thought it was kind of one of these deals that's so far out you got to pipe sunlight to it. And then I have to go back a ways and say to myself, when I was on the school board, I can remember when Dave Zager came in, and one of the unique things that he did was started working with the parks, which had never been done before. We do work with Freeport Park, but I think this opens up some opportunities for some things that may be beneficial to us in the long run, may be beneficial to Forreston in the long run. To me, the first thing I texted Sean the other night, and I told him, I said, I didn't know you were looking for a part-time job, let alone one that doesn't pay anything, you know. But I think we have to look past that. I think there's a lot of good in this. I think there's some good to come out of it. I believe the amendments that's been made with the legal things to hold us not liable for stuff, the amount of equipment that's going to be used, I believe is minimal, and all in-office stuff other than maybe some surveying stuff. So I would agree with doing it.
Mayor.
Alderman Chesney.
Well, I want to clarify my position because we've made this about Sean Gallagher, and this is not about Sean Gallagher. This is what's up best for the city of Freeport. And apparently there's members of the council and the mayor that have more affinity and love to the Forreston School District and are concerned about their budget than they are what's best for the city of Freeport. I don't have one person that elected me from the Forreston School District, and I don't have a problem with the Forreston School District. And what Sean Gallagher wants to do on his own time with his own resources, I think is okay. But I do think it's a dangerous path to go down to loan out city equipment for other taxing bodies that we don't have interest with. Now, the Park District's a great example where we have historically entered into intergovernmental agreements. Park District, school board, the county, those are areas where we have worked with these taxing bodies in the past. No place can I remember that we've worked with the Forston School District other than a little bit over in Millrace Crossing, okay? I don't have a problem with Sean Gallagher, and I don't have a problem with him volunteering his time. I think, though, that what's best for the city of Freeport is not to go down a we can rent out our services mentality, and that's what we're ultimately doing. What we're saying is that anything is for rent with a good reason. And what I'm saying is if it's an emergency, I get it. We'll come together and we're going to help out our community. But this isn't an emergency. What we're saying is we're going to loan out our equipment to another taxing body, and I would say that's fine, but then we better have policies in place for every employee in the city of Freeport that wants to do the same. If not, we are then picking the winners and the losers, because if somebody from forestry wants to borrow trucks or somebody in forestry wants to do something, we should let them too, because right now we're saying, well, equipment, computers, software, licenses, that's okay. But equipment's chainsaws, dump trucks, that's not okay. So I just think that we're, I suspect it's going to pass tonight, but I do believe that we need to be doing what's in the best interest in the city of Freeport, and I don't think that includes the Forestry School District.
Mayor.
Alderman Keister.
You make some valid points, Alderman Chesney, but in the same respect, helping another community, I don't have a problem with it, and a little bit of computer software and stuff. Comparing that to forestry equipment, I think is not fair, because with forestry equipment, trucks and stuff, you have a liability issue and a lot of injury potential there that just would not be passed for this. As far as helping another school district or another township, I don't see what the problem is. The city itself is going to benefit from this, from reimbursement from the equipment. It's going to help pay for some of the software that we use, the licensing and stuff. It's going to help that. It's not going to abuse the equipment, as far as I know. And any other use of equipment like that is going to have to come before this council. And myself personally, if they start talking about chainsaws, trucks, or anything like that, I would be the first one to speak against it, because the liability probability on that is tremendous, and I would not be in favor of it. But in this situation, I think it's a win-win for the city, and I think we need to move it forward.
Mayor?
Alderman Ross.
Yes. Me, myself, I look at this as networking. If Chief Barklow needed information from somebody in Rockford, he can call the Rockford PD. They'll send an officer out, go find out. Boom. You tell them. Free of charge. Doesn't do it. I know it. I've done it myself a long time ago. It's looking at a way of one person helping another person, and evidently, Forrester needs just a little bit of help, and I think we should give it to him. Plain and simple. In my eyes, it's networking. Just one person helping another person. I know there's some equipment that's going to be used, but yeah, Forrester, they did. The city of Forrester didn't know it. They did not elect me in. But like I said, though, if Chief Barklow needs some help, he can go over there and get a little bit of help. And they ain't gonna say, well, you didn't appoint me as chief. No. They said, we're gonna help you out. And that's what it's all about. One hand washing the other one.
Mayor?
Is there any new points to be made? I think everybody has spoke, perhaps not, at least once. Alderman Keister.
I just have one further question for Director Gallagher. I think I understand the answer of it, but you're going to have, occasionally you are going to have actual equipment out there on the site?
The water and sewer laptop that I have, yes.
Okay. Follow up, Mayor?
Alderman Keister.
Is it covered in this agreement that if anything happens to the equipment you're using out there, that they are reimbursed for it? Or we are reimbursed for it? Since there will be actual, even in the form of a laptop, there'll be actual equipment out there. If it gets damaged, do we get paid back for it?
That should be covered by what Michael wrote before, but
Attorney Phillips.
On section 1B, it says, "The city shall be reimbursed by the school district for any and all expenses reasonably incurred by the city during Sean Gallagher's use of city equipment for the benefit of the school district as more fully described in section 2A below." And it, any actual cost to the city is included in 2A for the use of its CAD and technical equipment. Actual cost would include any damage to it. It does not specifically say damage, but that would be a cost incurred by the city.
Thank you.
Is there any other discussion or debate?
Mayor,
Alderperson Miller.
I have to say that I have to agree with Alderman Chesney simply for the fact that we're supposed to be looking out for the people of Freeport. And while I totally support the volunteerism, we have to look at the people of Freeport pay taxes to the city and the park district that are here. They don't pay it to Forest. And also, Engineer Gallagher, I have to wonder if your wife would like us to not pass this, given the schedule that you keep.
That thought had crossed my mind.
Mayor, one final comment.
Alderman Chesney.
Thank you. Mr. Gallagher, I appreciate what you do for the city, and I appreciate what you are going to likely probably do for the Forest School District, and I do support your volunteerism. I'm voting no tonight, not because of anything you're doing or my position or this particular document. I think it is just a poor precedent to set, but I also applaud your efforts to the community and the people that you serve in Forest as well.
One quick follow-up, Mayor Gitz.
City engineer is recognized.
As I outlined in that memo, I have been contacted by other municipalities about other intergovernmental agreements, more on the street reconstruction, typically maintenance related. So smaller municipalities don't have the engineering resources to produce a maintenance program. They're not doing large scale projects where they can get grants funding and then utilize consultant engineers. So I have been approached by a couple of other municipalities. So as we look at intergovernmental agreements outside of the city of Freeport, I encourage you to provide me any feedback on whether that's a way we want to go. Typically, they would be set up similar to the Park District agreement where we're getting kind of our overhead and profit covered. But I do realize that those kind of things begin to take hours away from my actual duties here, and how much are you willing to outsource or not. Ultimately, my priorities are still here, so thank you.
Mayor?
Okay, is there any new points to be made? If not, I think we're
Mayor.
kind of beaten this one to death.
Alderman Busker.
Alderman Busker.
In light of Mr. Gallagher's comments there, that might be something to look at other agencies with this. Is this a time-sensitive issue, or is this something we could discuss and come back at the next meeting to iron out everyone's concerns with loaning out our resources to other agencies? Because maybe we need to look at making a whole policy on it, so we're not having this debate all the time. Where do we all stand? What is acceptable? What is not?
Is there any other discussion? Not, there's a motion on the floor. That motion has been seconded to approve the resolution with the amendments that have been incorporated within the attachment by Attorney Phillips. Madam Clerk, please take the roll on the motion to approve.
Clem?
Aye.
McClanathan?
Aye.
Ross?
Aye.
Miller?
No.
Busker?
Aye.
Brashaw?
Aye.
Keister?
Aye.
Chesney?
No.
The resolution passes 6-2.
Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes resolutions, and we now move to other business. Item 12 is reports of department heads. First is a motion of a recommendation of denial on a petition for amending the zoning at 476 South Adams. Director Mills, would you please tell the public and the council what is being asked under this item?
Thank you, Mayor. So the Planning Commission has had a need to hold another public hearing regarding a petition that was filed with it in order for them to make appropriate findings of fact in whether they would recommend that or not to city council. The issue that has happened is that the petitioner's been notified via phone and in person several times. We've kept records on that. That they would need to attend a public hearing in order to present their case to the Planning Commission again. And at the last two regular meetings of the Planning Commission, where a public hearing was to be held, the petitioner has not been in attendance. So without the petitioner attendance, the Planning Commission hasn't been able to hear their testimony and not able to make those findings and a way to recommend or not to the City Council. So at this time, essentially what this is asking is to consider this effectively abandoned because of lack of attendance, for City Council to deny this petition outright.
Attorney Phillips, anything to add to this? No, sir. Questions of the council?
Mayor?
Alderman McClanathan.
Thank you. There have been some, and I think this was probably from the planning side, but there had been some prior denials that didn't make their way then to us. What's the difference about this that we need to make a formal vote recommending the denial or not?
Director Mills?
Are you speaking to that denial of an appeal for a property where it was being used?
Well, in that same meeting, I think there's a denial in regards to something across from, on Galena, across from, so there were a few of denials that night.
In many
Director Mills?
in many cases, the petitioner will withdraw their petition so as not to receive a no vote by City Council. A no vote by City Council prohibits them from filing again for a year.
Okay.
So in many cases, they withdraw rather than have that definite no from City Council. In this case, we just can't get the attendance.
Thanks for the clarification.
Mr. Mayor?
On the substance of it, there are issues with this petition that have been pointed out. But we don't need to go to the substance of it because when it was sent back for a rehearing, there's not been a presentation on it. Alderman Clem.
I was just going to make a motion to deny the petition for 476 South Adams.
Second.
It is moved by Alderman Clem and multiply second. I will recognize Alderman Ross for that purpose to deny the petition. Is there any other discussion? Attorney Phillips, do we need a roll call vote or voice vote? Roll call vote is suggested. Madam Clerk, call the roll on the motion to deny the petition.
Clem.
Aye.
McClanathan.
Aye.
Ross.
Aye.
Miller.
Aye.
Busker.
Aye.
Brashaw.
Aye.
Keister.
Aye.
Chesney.
Aye.
That passes 8-0.
Okay. Director Mills, anything else from Community Development?
No other report at this time.
Okay. We now come to the bid for the leaf waste disposal at Dickman Farm Service by Director Dole. This was discussed at the Committee of the Whole. Director Dole, summarize the bid.
Okay, thank you. Nothing has changed since last week. The two bids that were received were opened. One was withdrawn. So we're left with one bid for Dickman Farms for $40,000 for unlimited leaf disposal for the 2016 leaf program. And I would recommend that we approve it.
Mayor,
Alderperson Bradshaw.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the bid to
Second.
Dickman Farms.
Second it.
It's moved by Alderperson Bradshaw, seconded by Alderperson Miller to accept the bid of Dickman Farm Service in the amount of $40,000 for the use of their property for leaf disposal. Is there any other discussion? If not, Madam Clerk, please take the roll.
Clem.
Aye.
McClanathan.
Aye.
Ross.
Aye.
Miller.
Aye.
Busker.
Aye.
Brashaw.
Aye.
Keister.
Aye.
Chesney.
Aye.
That passes 8-0.
Director Dole, any other reports to the council?
I have no other reports, but the leaf program does not start until the middle of October typically, so we'll let you know when that begins. Thank you.
Mayor.
Questions? Alderman Chesney.
Thank you. Director Dole, what would you anticipate the entire cost being in a calendar year, fiscal year, however you want to do it, for the total leaf pickup when you factor in the cost of the landfill, the cost of the employees, the equipment? What is the range of this particular service that we're providing the city of Freeport?
Mayor?
Director Dole.
It's been a while since I've done a job costing on our vehicles and our labor hours. I list the labor hours each time I do a report. Last year we had 1,981 labor hours, but I didn't do an average hourly wage on it, which would be simple enough. The equipment costs can vary a little bit. I think I did it, the last time I did job costing a couple years ago was upwards of 90,000 by the time we were all done, including tipping, obviously.
Further question?
Follow-up, Mayor?
Alderman Chesney.
Okay, switching gears, Director, when we go to tree trimming, it was brought to my attention that if we were to look at the backlog of the tree trimming, that we're about 2.5 years behind. So in light of that, I know that we allocated some money for some, some emergency tree trimming, those that could be done by the private sector, that was agreed to the union, that wouldn't be in conflict with their contract. What is the process, or what is the progress on that particular allocation of funds, and where are we at on the tree trimming for that?
Director Doe.
It's actually not trimming. We would contract removals, 100% removals. We narrowed down our list to I think 16 to 20 highest priority trees that are out of our reach. From those 20, I cut the list in half. So I've got 10 that we sent out to private contractors to get some sort of idea for dollars per tree. And so far, I've only received 2 bids back. So the goal is to contract out, upwards of maybe 10, somewhere from 6 to 10 to get a start on it and see how much that's going to cost us. And I know there's money in the budget for contract removal, but we narrowed down the highest of priority ones that we can't reach. So we're slowly working on that, but waiting for some numbers to come in.
Final comment, Mayor?
Alderman Chesney.
Thank you. And then in the city yard, in the paint room, there's a massive hole that's taking in water that I'm told is being used. Do we have anything in the budget to rectify just that particular area that needs to be addressed? Is there anything in the budget, or do you have any plans to address that before snow falls?
In the paint room?
Yeah, the small area where they're doing striping or they hold the paint. It would be right up against the
against the fence. Okay. We do have a small hole. I've got money that would do a small roof repair, sure.
Thank you.
Anything else, Director Doe?
Nothing else.
Okay. Director of Finance?
Thank you, Mayor. Just an announcement. Before I came here, I just received an email from the auditors to tell me that the first draft will be delivered on October 4th. We will get the first draft of the audit, so I hope it's a good one. So I don't know the details. So on October 4th, I will.
A lot better situation than we were a year ago. Police Chief.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just want to remind everybody, we're very excited. We'll be swearing in 2 new police officers this Wednesday at 9 o'clock here at City Hall. Fairly well, one of the new hires is local, and the other one is from Pecatonica. So we're pretty excited about that. They start the academy September 25th, so they report down there. Also, I wanted to just kind of remind everybody that last Monday and today and again next Monday, we're hosting a canine class. So you'll see a lot of different officers from many different agencies, and they're running that class 3 to 11. So they work on, problem solving, different things with some canines. So the community will see the officers out and about, maybe from, it could be from Boone County or, I think Rochelle. There's many of them from all around. So we're happy to host that class. But just to remind the public that, they're not, nothing's really going on. They're just could be tracking around and doing different scenarios. So.
Any questions for the Police Chief? Okay. Fire Chief.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to announce that we still have openings in our Citizen Fire Academy. It's scheduled to begin September 28th and conclude November the 9th. Those our evening sessions will be held on Wednesday evenings from 6:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. So if you're interested, especially the council members, applications can be picked up at our central fire station or also downloaded off the city's website.
Any questions to the fire chief?
Mayor?
Alderman McClanathan.
Thank you. It's been a while since we've addressed the issue of the old station. Are we still proceeding on that matter?
Fire chief?
It'd be best if I deferred to the mayor, but my understanding is that we're waiting for a upgraded appraisal to be concluded, to be finished. Perhaps the mayor has more information on that.
Two things, Alderman McClanathan. One, the appraisal's value of the property depended heavily upon whether we can lift it out of the floodplain. That's conclusion is no, it can't, which comes as somewhat of a surprise. Two, we've asked the appraiser to please give us the updated appraisal so we can proceed. And three, we've entered into some discussions with one of the would-be users, both on purchase and also rental with purchase. So we're going to be bringing some things to the council in October on that.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor?
Alderman Keister.
Along that lines, it had been discussed briefly on several occasions when we talked about this, about reaching out to companies that put in the cell phone towers and stuff and seeing about having one put back there for receiving money from rental spaces. Anything been done on that? Has that moved forward or any investigation on that?
Yes, we are investigating.
Okay, thank you.
Water and sewer.
Originally, I wasn't going to have a report tonight, but I've been getting a lot of questions tonight, either out of curiosity or excitement that we may be doing something at Burchard Tank. Yes, we are filling the water tower, but not with potable water. We're actually disinfecting the water tower, and once, which we've never finished that function since it was been built, but it's not online. There was no need to because there wasn't any water in it. We're doing this for the purposes of two things. First, to calibrate all the level sensors in it, but once we get it cleaned and done, we will be bringing water into it at a static level to equal the existing system now, so there won't be any additional storage or any additional pressure. As you know, there is a multitude of valves that we are going to have, that we have put in and we are putting in now on the Phase B project that will control the two systems. We probably will be adding a little increased pressure against the system as we shut some of these down, but we got to determine whether they work or not. And the only way I can do that will be add a little bit of additional pressure over the static pressure to determine this, and so we'll be ready. It will be sometime in the spring when we bring this up to full power, and I've said enough about this project. It is going to be a very intense operational thing to do any of this, so this is just a formality in the steps to get to next spring.
Questions? Alderman Clem.
Mr. Glendenning, I don't know, this is, could go out to either you or Sean or Tom, whoever did it, but thank you guys for the heads up on the closure of the streets to replace the valves and stuff up on Stevenson. We sent that right out and it went through the neighborhood watch so people at least knew about it. But greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Anything else?
Nope.
City engineer?
Thank you, Mayor. Four quick things to cover. We're completing now on the Phase B project. We completed our last driveways today on Laurel Street. We do have a section of between Haven Court and Concord. That section's being bypassed. We're going to start storm sewer improvements later this week on that section. But we started black dirt, topsoil restoration, Park Crest today, so that project should be wrapping up in the next 2 to 3 weeks. The only thing that we'll have outside of that will be our loop that we intend to do at Concord. I think I mentioned that last time. We discovered that the south section of Concord does not connect to that water main, so we want to connect that with this project while we have that opportunity. We've begun to complete all the restoration on Contract 3. So Empire Street was restored over the last 2 weeks. Empire Court, Carriage Hill, and Stevenson Street, those were cleaned up. And now we're doubling back on all the streets that we left this spring, early summer, which would be your Harlem Avenue, Burchard, Lincoln, Jefferson, Monroe Drive, Prairie. Those are the ones that, with different seeding techniques, due to the weather, due to the heat, and due to some of the material, did fail in a significant number of locations. So that is a contractor responsibility for that restoration. It's not a homeowner responsibility. Our priority has always been on Empire because of the leg with traffic and getting that restored in the timeline we said it would. But now we're going back and completing that restoration while we do, as Tom mentioned, the valves. We had 52 valves to replace, 12 of them pertinent to the actual shutdown sequence within the pressure zone. So you'll see more intersection closings. I think we got most of the big ones out of the way, but we'll continue that through the next couple of weeks as well. You will start to see us out probably 2 weeks from now completing the section from on Pearl City Road in front of Parkview in order to get their new water service tied together for them to begin, and then we'll jump back to McKinley to Burchard on Empire. Those are our last 1 mile left of water main to complete within this project. That'll be kind of this fall's wrap up. So I think that covers pretty much everything else, unless you have any questions.
Questions from the council? Alderman Clem.
Just a compliment. Thank you for the cleanup on everything on Empire and the areas on Stevenson Street. You guys really, the contractors have done a good job on that. And I know you're pushing them, and I know a lot of water and sewer guys are helping on the projects too. But thanks for the great cleanup at the end. I know that was a concern of a lot of people. And I drove down the Empire Street last night with my wife, and I said, well, I wonder what the people on Burchard think now when they didn't get an opportunity for that, because it really looks good. I think it's an asset, and there's people using it.
Mm-hmm.
Did you cover some of the reseeding that's going on other streets?
Yes, the biggest thing to point out with the reseeding is whether it takes us 2 or 3 or 4 times, these projects won't be closed until probably August of next year. So we'll continually do punch list walkthroughs and just kind of knock these out one thing at a time. So I realize when we leave a site, we restore it once, we are coming back. I'll do a final review of everything before we officially let our contractors off the hook, even next spring. So whatever doesn't grow this fall after we restore it, we'll be back again in the spring to restore it. And some of that has to do with settling of the ground. Just over winter, we'll get some rough spots. So if people want to let me know or contact me if you see some areas that haven't been restored. But give us a couple of weeks. We're going to be on it here through September. And then if things don't come back, please contact me.
Okay. Librarian? Carol?
Good evening. This week's program in the 2016 Local History Series is an author talk and reading. Local Freeport author Debbie Deutsch is going to be discussing, reading from, and signing copies of her new novel, Throwaway Sisters. Throwaway Sisters is set in Freeport, but not Freeport of today, Freeport in 1978. I wonder if there's anyone here who can remind me of what the focal point of downtown Freeport in 1978 was.
The mall.
Plaza. And was there a water feature of some sort?
There's a lot of features.
The dolphins. Okay. There, see, I couldn't have answered that question, but the program is going to be Wednesday evening at 6:30 We've been drawing audiences of nearly 90 people, so I hope we will have a good turnout for Debbie Deutsch. I just finished the novel myself, and in a way, I'm a little sorry I finished it before hearing Debbie read, because there's also a fair amount of suspense in the novel. Thank you. We're pleased to have her come.
Any questions from the council? Thank you. That concludes department reports. Item 13 is the mayor's report. A couple of quick announcements. One, the county has approved the 911 resolution. Chairman Hadley and I have discussed it. There are 4 people on the council who have expressed an interest in serving that committee. I've talked to 3 of you. I'm going to try to finish that tomorrow, make an appointment, get it moving. By the terms of the resolution, we hope to move this along. So there's been a lot of other things happening on other fronts, so we're trying to get this one worked in. 2, most of you on the council and the public know that the old modern plating site is over on Elbum and Hancock. Director Mills and I and Fair Graham and our grant coordinator toured that site today. There's a change order or 2 that are going to be approved under the grant for some further cleanup in one spot. But one of the questions we have, since we're well within the grant terms, is the future use of that property. If you go out there right now, it's just primarily a lot of concrete because that has to be set in place as an environmental barrier. And there's other places where there's just gravel. So we're going to be somewhat creative, we hope, in persuading IEPA to help us to beautify it a little bit beyond what it is now. So my purpose in sharing that information is twofold. One, I would encourage you to take a look at the property, and you have some ideas, we'd like to hear them. Number 2, I'd like to know if you concur that maybe we should do some type of a charrette or public input process to say, since this is going to be right next to the Pecatonica Prairie Path Trail, what kind of uses would you like to see? I mean, there could be some sculpture park uses, there could be a campground, there could be a lot of different things, providing we don't dig up the entire site and remove a lot of what's there. So I think there's some interesting possibilities there, and I'm sure Alderman Ross is as interested as the rest of us in what we can do that doesn't interfere with the drainage process. The third issue is much even more practical. The hot patch plants will close, I'm told, by Director Dole in a couple of weeks. We've been doing hot patching as the plant locally has been open, which it's not open every day. I want to suggest to the council that if you have particular intersections or areas that you would like to see some patching done, let us know so that we can start to get that into the system and prioritize before it becomes an impossibility later in October. Alderman Clem pointed out one such section today down on Gladewood. So if you'd let Tom and I know, I'd like to see us do as much patching as we can, particularly before the leaf season begins. Next, as I think many of you know, the Illinois Municipal League has its annual convention in Chicago later this week. I'm a member of their board. There are a number of different conferences. If you flip onto the website, there's some particular areas of interest that you have, or you'd like to attend those sessions, let us know. We will be bringing papers back, which we'll make a list of for the council to share with you from that. If the information isn't shared, it seems to me that it's of limited utility. And the final item I'd like to share, I know that some of you are Bear fans like me and like to adjourn, is this weekend we have a couple of special events going on. One of them is one that's become quite large called Brewfest, but the second one is a new one called Tour to Freeport, which is a bicycle event. So if any of you are inclined to venture out into that, I think that would be really cool that we have some presence from the city involved in what I hope will become a growing event. Any questions from the council? If not, thank you. Council announcements and new business. Alderman Clem.
I'd like to thank Alex for the information he sent us over the weekend on some of the building sites and things that we could be looking at and coming up with the structure things. There was a lot of good information there on too bad it was on bad topics, but a lot of real good information and ideas that you could take forward. Also, I guess one thing, the Mad Men Wednesday morning are going to do some cleanup around Gladewood Bridge and stuff in there. And I'd just like to thank all the departments and on the work they've done in getting everything ready for fall and the cleanup on the projects. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Alderman Clanathan.
Thank you. Between you, Mayor, and Alderman Clem, you covered the topics I was going to cover, so no further comment.
Okay. Alderman Ross.
Yes, just a little bit. First of all, I'd like to thank, we had a great neighborhood watch meeting. K9 Auto came to the meeting. The residents were more than happy with him. They learned a lot. They learned more than they had known before. And it was more than appreciative to him showing up. You know, he was with Officer Anderson. We're ready yet. I don't want to make it sound like Otto brought Anderson, but Officer Anderson, he's a K9 trainer, and he really did a good job presenting K9 Auto. Now, getting back to the modern plating cleanup, yes, it looks very good. It hasn't looked that good since before it was built, a little before my time. But no, it really looks good. It's cleaned up. Yeah, whatever we could do to some kind of beautification to there, that would be nice. That would make, you know, instead of, you know, leaving it like it is, you know, take the fence down and leave it, no. But if we could do something to it, would be a very, you know, spruce the area up a little bit. And that's about it.
Alderman Ross, you seem to have some expertise on autos. When I was out there, I noticed that if you looked across Hancock Avenue, there was an Edsel there.
Yes, it is.
And if there was a home for it, it would be less a detraction there and more an asset someplace else. Just saying, maybe it's worth some money down the road.
Man, you gotta go talk.
Alderperson Miller.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to what the mayor said about Saturday's events. They're also at 9 o'clock out of the Tuddy's Crossing is the Small Town Big Heroes, where the United Way is honoring 12 members of the community, which should be really an exciting thing to be a part of. And then also the Tour de Freeport is free, so you just have to register. And actually, they're giving away some really nice things at the end for anyone that comes and stops at all of the interactives along the way. So if you're concerned that you can't do a 10-plus mile bike ride, don't be. There's a stop every 2 miles or less. So if you can bike for 2 miles, you'll be able to accomplish the whole thing. And the interactives are super fun. So if you have young people that would want to be a part of that, I would encourage that. And there are still a few tickets left for Brewfest, so that is an event that you have to pay for. So you can get that from the CVB or call them and find out who else has tickets available. So, thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for your work on it. Alderman Busker.
Just a reminder of the Fifth Ward Neighborhood Watch meeting tomorrow night at the First Church of the Nazarene at 6 o'clock.
Thank you. Alderperson Brashaw.
Nothing this evening, thank you.
Alderman Keister.
Yes, one real quick thing, Mayor. We talk a lot about the airport and what goes on out there. This last Saturday was the 3rd annual mail run at Freeport Airport. And for those who don't know what that is, I see a couple blank looks across the aisle there. What that is it's basically a scavenger hunt with airplanes. You're given a route to fly. And through that route, you're given landmarks at each point that you're supposed to photograph and bring back with. However, the main stickler of that is you have to plot the route by hand. You're not allowed to use any modern navigational aids whatsoever, such as GPS, VOR, or any of those. You have to plot it the old-fashioned way. And the person that wins is the one that flies the route, gets all the pictures, and comes closest to their projected time, because you have to turn in a flight plan prior to takeoff. I had the opportunity of flying with a gentleman who currently is an airline pilot and was an ex-F-15 pilot, which created some interesting situations once or twice. But our team came in second with 1 minute, .07 seconds off of our projected time. The winning team come in with .06 seconds off their projected time. So that kind of hard to beat. That's his second year running. And this is an annual thing. We will have it next year. We had 5 aircraft this year. Last year we had 6. Hopefully we're going to have a lot more next year.
Thank you. Alderman Chesney.
My announcement would be something that I don't think anybody at the city council can disagree with. Wishing you, Mayor, a happy birthday.
Thank you. I don't look forward to them as much as I used to. On the other hand, it's good to be in good health, so thank you. That concludes all the business of the city except for public comments. Are there any public comments? Mr. Tyke. Tommy, I was at President St. Joseph's today and I didn't see you.
What, Mayor?
I was at your establishment for a proclamation and the release of the balloons, and I didn't see you there.
Oh, you was there?
I was there, and I
Oh my God!
looking all around for Tom Tyke.
Mayor, we're gonna keep you for the mayor. We don't want no city manners like you said. That's for crazy.
No comment.
I'm voting no for it. For you, Mayor.
Thank you.
And Chief Pargo, what the whole up about the Wolfside Freeport?
We'll have to check it out. We'll look.
And Chesney, you're gonna find out about Lamb Road, right?
I am.
When?
Call you Wednesday.
Wednesday?
Yep.
Okay. And happy birthday, Mayor Getz.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment? If not, the business of the council being concluded, the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
It's moved by Alderman Keister, seconded by Alderman Busker. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Adjourned.
Man.
No.
Saturday, I'm going to lovely day in the neighborhood.
The water's go up like this. I don't know what to do that. Can you check that? Before you get the light fixed so they don't. Well, we gotta get it fixed. So far, so you gotta put it on this to get fixed. Well, you gotta let them
Why you keep asking about Rosario? We went there. I took Tom. Last meeting we got done, so we drove out there, looked right in the window. It's all under construction.
Say that. Scott, you know what Mayor gets it? How old are you?
How old? Man. I don't know. No.